The Beef and Barnzy Show, brought to you by Bowlersmart.com, trusted by bowlers around the world since 2004. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowlers Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Road to Grip, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
Good morning and welcome back to the Beef and Barnzy Show. As usual, I'm Barnzy, joined by the inimitable Stuart Williams. Beef Stew, how are you? And more importantly, how did you bowl in league last night?
Well, it was the odd week, so I bowled like an asshole. I've currently gone 608, I think it was the first week. 770 the second week, 645 the third week, 803 the fourth week, and then I smoked them for 3 200s for 650 last night.
Did you use your new ball last night?
I did not use a new ball last night, but I will tell you a fun story. Not that I think that it's necessarily 100% connected, but I drilled a ball that I used week 2, and I drilled it on the Monday morning. And I drilled a ball that I would use week 4 on the Monday morning. And currently using the new balls, I'm averaging 785. So I'm not suggesting that I'm going to drill a brand new ball every single week, but new ball carry is a thing.
New ball carry. Wow. Here we go. Peter Wyatt getting to start it off hot.
I will get to that in just one second, but this brings up a fun thing. So I've been trying to find a better way to do these. I mean, a giveaway isn't necessarily the correct term, I guess. The ball. Anyway, the drawing. So here's the way I'm going to try it this time. We are going to, for every $1 on the super chat or on anything you buy from beefandbarnzy.com, you will get your name on the wheel of ideal, and I will build it after the show today, and then on Thursday we'll spin that baby. It's too much work to create it as we're going. But here's the kicker, and this is quite a good kicker. If you buy stuff on beefandbarnzy.com, we will give you 2 entries for every $1. So if you buy a t-shirt, you get the t-shirt and you get 50 entries. So there's the this wheel is going to be quite small, the writing on it, hopefully. Yeah, it will be spin to win. Yeah. That's how it's going to go down. So right now, Peter has 5 entries, and right now he's winning because he's the only contributor. But the difference between pin up and pin down, it depends a little bit on your axis point. But if we're just going to talk in general terms, if you drill pin down, you drill out, in my understanding, more of the core. So once you drill out more of the core, there's less differential in the ball, right? In simple terms. So yeah, it flares less.
Differential is how tall versus how wide.
Yeah.
And when the pin's on the top and you drill below, you're drilling into the side with both holes. So you're making it narrower versus taller. That's a pin up. And so you're increasing the height versus width. And when you drill on the top, you're drilling through the top of both sides, so you're making it shorter versus wider, which then makes it flare less.
And
very simplified, overly simplified.
What that means in terms of ball motion, for me anyway, the way I see it, a pin down ball has a longer transition. When it hits the dry, it doesn't change to its forward motion. It takes longer to go from spinning this side to side to spinning forward. So I see it as it's a longer transition. So if the front part of the lane is really beat up, I find, especially with cleaner balls, that using them in that part is good because the friction is closer to you. So the pin-up ball transitions faster. So when the friction is closer to you, it actually gets forward way quicker. Whereas the pin down ball, it doesn't grab the friction as quickly. So it makes a more of a continuous motion. So it doesn't look like it rolls out as quickly. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I think that's a very advanced look at it, and it's dependent on friction and where it is on the lane. Maybe a simpler, I don't know, another different way is basically pin down flares less. For a lot of people, means you're closer to the friction, and so it's smoother. Whereas pin up tends to be it flares more, lets you play more in the oil when there is oil in the front of the lane, and then we'll have a, like Stu says, a quicker transition. And so whether that turns into rollout or just means it's sharper move off the back end, that's basically it. Pin down tends to be on the smoother side. Pin up tends to be on the more directional side.
Yeah. I think that you shouldn't look at it as pin down is earlier and pin up is longer, because that's just factually incorrect. That's how people believed it was for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not true.
Yeah, in general, the less flare part,
yeah,
it can actually, because there is more and more friction in the front of the lane now, it actually almost can work the other way.
Yeah, and I also the pin. For me, the pin-up balls are a little more versatile because of my track. Pin down balls for me, I only use pin down layouts in asymmetrical balls. I know Chris and some of the other guys are a little different. For me, with my rev rate and with where my track is, ones I couldn't use extra holes, pin down balls kind of become really pointless for me in symmetrical balls, because I end up clipping the fingers and they kind of flare a bit weird. And of course, when you could put balance holes in, you put it down in that bottom quadrant, you could move it up, your bow tie up to get it away from the fingers and stuff. So that is kind of how it's been for me anyway.
The AI bowl for me.
No. Alan Iverson.
I know he led the regional on Saturday. I don't know how that ended up over the weekend.
Just on another thing, can you imagine if Allen Iverson had trademarked AI all those years ago?
Well, that chord would be called something different. And so would
no, I don't mean that. I just meant it just did everything.
The electronic intelligence, I guess.
Yes. VW from Denmark. It says, just because I love both you guys and all the PBA guests, really appreciate it. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks. We do have the best fans in bowling. We get better questions, and some of you give funnier comments than any, not Alan, but I mean everyone else. So
Jason says he just wants some entries. We do have some orders coming in, so I will figure that one out in just 1 second. But yes.
Thoughts on refinishing balls like the Journey and Harsh Reality Pearl with Power Edge?
I've got some Power Edge. I've reached out to try and get some. Haven't had an email back yet, but hopeful, I think, is how we are with that.
Yeah, I have an order as well and looking forward to it.
Were you actually able to order it?
I was not yet. I sent an email and saying I did not get anything. It's not available to us yet, I believe. But
so we have already had a order from Brent. Chad. Chad's going in hot. You guys, he went for a t-shirt and a hoodie. So
There
he's
you
the
go.
leader in the clubhouse right now.
Dombrowski lost in the round of 8. He didn't throw a hustle or a tropical. Well, there's the problem, obviously. But
And
Ascent
then,
Night Scoot Tour, I mean, the Ascent is basically a IQ tour with double the flare. So he stayed in his wheelhouse, and he's been right more than I've been. So I'm coming around to PD.
Don't know you have the skill sets.
I don't, but I'm willing to try and fake it for a little while.
Fake it till you make it. And then
right.
Justin, thank you. So, all right. So, quickly getting back on some questions.
Ben,
it says, what about the pin next to the ring finger or pin at the side? Like, don't think necessarily about above the fingers or below the fingers, like in relation to it being everything and in that terms. Have I crapped out or has Chris crapped out? That is the question. Okay. Well, I'll keep talking and I'll kick Chris out, and then we can try and figure out what's going on. So yeah, think about it in terms of pin buffer. That is how far the pin is from your VAL. That is kind of how it is. So like for some people, like with two-handers, kind of pin down or pin under is actually basically just above the fingers as opposed to like way above the fingers. So just a couple of things to think about there. Ben, the striker, says, morning, gents. Would there be too much overlap with having an attention star, a Vibo, and a Zen Gold in the middle of the bag? No, but you might want to get a little creative with layouts to try and make the attention star and the Vibo gap a little bit more. For me, the attention star isn't as clean as the Vibo. And the Vibo is more angular, kind of. Be quiet, Siri. Is a little more angular. So I think if you kind of drilled the attention star a little stronger than the Vibo and then had the Zen Gold below that, I think that wouldn't be a bad 1, 2, 3. But if you got the layouts a little bit too close together, I think you could end up with a bit of trouble there. What are we doing here? How would you compare Optimum Idle Pearl to PHAZE AI? I'm hoping that Chris is going to be back because Chris has answered that question. If you check out Chris's video on the channel, there is more breakdown of this. For me, I find that the PHAZE AI is quite a bit stronger than the Optimum Idle Pearl. I know that Darren did his video and he didn't tend to agree. That's not necessarily that unusual. Me and Darren don't always see the balls the same anyway. Yeah, I found that the PHAZE AI was earlier and just more overall hook. So if Chris gets back online, we'll revisit this question. JP, I saw Belmo said he doesn't touch balls for 2 months after the season. I'm ensuring that must annoy year-round grinders like yourself. No, not really. When you make as much money as he does in all the tournaments, you kind of earn the right to have the time off. I kind of enjoy bowling, so I don't really want to take the time off. Yeah. For me, I kind of like it. I kind of like going around bowling the tournaments. It's just part of it for me. We got a couple more orders come in. Thanks, Peter. Ron, thank you. And who else? Scott, thank you very much. I'll get your entries loaded. And David, thank you. Sorry, you bought something earlier. So for those of you just joining, we're going to do another ball drawing. Basically, you're going to get an entry for every $1. If you buy it on beefandbarnzy.com, you get 2 times for every $1. So, and then I will do the drawing first thing on Thursday's show. Once I've built the wheel of ideal. Slapstick says, morning guys, I've been struggling hitting my line lately. Any advice to get more consistent? For me, footwork is the main thing, because if you end up in a different place every time, then it becomes very difficult, impossible to hit the same line. So you just got to think about where you're finishing each frame or each shot. So if you go down to practice, maybe start to like really focus in on where you're starting and where you're finishing. And if you have this issue, I had this issue a little while ago, probably about 3 or 4 years ago. What I actually did was I made a note every shot of where I started and where I finished. And then I could look to see if my drift was consistent. And that's what you got to work on. So footwork isn't just about getting your body in the right position. It's about literally getting your body in the right position at the foul line, in terms of left and right. So if you're walking all over the place, it makes it really, really, really difficult to be able to consistently bowl the same shots. So it also makes it harder if you aim at the arrows and you finish in a different spot, because then you've got 2 spots that are quite a long way apart. And if you're hitting your target at the arrows, but you're finishing a couple of boards to the right one shot or a couple of boards to the left another shot, you get really, really, really big differences. So that might not be the biggest problem. That might not be your problem, but for me anyway, most times when people talk about struggling to hit the same line over and over again, it's because their approach is kind of wonky and not finishing the same spot. So focus in on that. Try to identify what the problem is before you start fixing it, because it might be that you have a different problem. So that would be my first port of call anyway. Sorry, John. 2 of the worst weeks of league in my life last month. Nothing a little new ball carry wouldn't fix, right? Exactly. New ball carry is the answer. Ryan Thibodeau, if I have a Vibo, is the PHAZE AI too much overlap for a smallish 6 ball, including plastic? I don't think so. I think that I don't find that the PHAZE AI and the Vibo are going to be that close. Motion wise, I think the Vibo is going to be cleaner and a lot harder off the spot. I think that the PHAZE AI is going to be sooner, and the PHAZE AI will be sooner and it'll be more rounded. Whereas I see that sorry, I'm losing track. Chris just messaged me to say he's trying to reset his laptop. The symmetrical ball will pick up sooner and be more rounded in this case. The Vibo, I think, will skid quite a bit further and then it'll make a much sharper turn. So in terms of having both of them in a 6 ball arsenal, I think it would be fine. What's the point of having reverse pitch for 2-handers? Well, the problem is you kind of want to lay, what the 2-handers end up doing is they put their fingers in and then they really lay their hand more around the ball to try and hold as much of the ball as possible. Well, if you look, your fingers are quite flat when you do that. It's kind of hard to get more, to put your hand across the whole of the ball if you don't have more away pitch, because the away pitch allows your hand to be flatter on the ball. And I think not having ball two-handed, but I think that's what helps them, having more reverse pitch. Justin, need a ball between the Optimum Idol and the Revenant. Currently use a Zen and feel like it's too early and strong when I switch game 3 of League. So you want a ball off the Optimum Idol, but the Zen is too strong. I mean, I don't hate the Optimum Idol Pearl, to be honest, in that spot. Maybe drill it a little bit weaker than your Zen, and I think you might be in business there. For me, the Zen was always a little stronger than the Optimum Idol. I think that they're probably close-ish. The other ball that you could go for, let me just pull up Storm's website because I have a couple of ideas. I just want to confirm in my mind. Optimum. Another ball you could consider is Ion Pro, especially if the lanes are starting to get a little bit broken down for like game 3. I think having the solid cover could provide something a little smoother, so it won't necessarily be as jerky. So Ion Pro, I think, could be another good option. If you wanted a decent step down, but something still stronger than the Revenant, I think if you put a strongish layout and a Lightning Blackout, that would be a good option also, because the Lightning Blackout has a stronger cover than the Revenant. So there are a couple of options, I think, that would fit in that gap. We've had quite a few more orders. So Donald, thank you. Michael, thank you. David, David this time, not Donald, thank you. Stephen, thank you. And Mark, thank you. Thanks for your orders. So yeah, I think that either of those two would probably fit well. That's the Lightning Blackout with a slightly stronger. Both of those with stronger layouts. Ion Pro or Lightning Blackout, I think, would look good there. Good morning. Is the rule of N still valid in today's game, where drill angle put val angle on asymmetricals is vital, or is pin to pap more important? I think pin to pap has always been more important. I think that the drill angle plus the val number on asymmetricals is vital. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think all of it combined is pretty strong, but like to me, pin to pap is always going to be the most. I've actually never heard of the rule of N. But yes, the drill angle and the val number, yeah, they're always going to be critical. But I don't necessarily think pin to pap. I personally don't think they're more important than pin to pap. But I think that they're a close second. Like, yeah, I would say that pin to pap is probably 40% of the layout, and the other two make up, like, probably the mass bias is a little, yeah, probably 30% each. But I think pin to pap is still the most important. Chris had to go finish his honey-do list. Yeah, Chris. Yeah, but I understand what he's saying. I just have never heard of the rule of N. Chris is still trying to. He's fighting with technology. Old man yelling at clouds. RB, it says, I'm a new subscriber. It's a low speed, medium rev, 300 revs league bowler. Which of the latest balls should I consider? I mean, let me have a look at all of them. I think Optimum Idol Pearl might be a good option for you. Yeah, I think that could be that could be a really good option. What was the paint the lanes pink thing this morning? Let's have a look. Oh, I guess they haven't revealed it yet. I guess that hasn't been revealed yet. But yes, I think Optimum Idle Pearl would be a good option to have a look at of the newest balls that are coming out. W Bear 3 is bowling is being precise in bowling for your average league bowler necessary, i.e., instead of targeting 15 at the arrows, targeting 14 to 16 and call it a day. I 100% am not a big fan of targeting one board. Because like I say, with your approach, you kind of yeah. Like for me, I'm not really a fan of like 3-point targeting, personally. I think that you set your target before you start, and then you just bowl the shot. I think that if you focus too much on one board, I think it's really difficult to perform the shot. That's me. I think on league conditions, I think that definitely that I think in league conditions, it's definitely not as important because you want to be finding the area of the lane that you can create the most miss room. So yeah, that's 100% the way I see it. Targeting one board to me is it brings as many issues as it does solves. Chris Martin, he says, "Hey Stu, saw your post on Twitter. How do you really feel about Ohio State football?" They haven't played anybody. Like, how can anybody vote for Ohio State over Texas or Alabama as the number one? They haven't played anybody. How would hey Billy? Thanks again for the chat. He said, "How would a PHAZE AI fit in my bag?" 15.4 off the monitors, so about 17 miles an hour, around 350 RPMs. I have the Gem, the Vibo, the Iron Pro Phase 2, Idle Cosmos, but that recently cracked. Hustle RAP and Zen U. Well, for me, if I was organizing your bag currently, I would say it's probably Gem, Phase 2, and then the Ion Pro, and then the Cosmos and the Ion Pro are kind of, it really depends on layouts, and then the Vibo, and then you go Hustle, Rip, and Zen U. It could fit in as a replacement for your Cosmos. You just see a ball that's a little more angular, so it would then fit kind of in between Phase 2 and Vibo, depending on where the Iron Pro. The Iron Pro would probably be closer to the Phase 2, I guess. Right now, I think the biggest gap you've got is between the Gem and the Phase 2. Yeah, that's where I see your biggest gap. And then Vibo to Hustle Rip might be a little big as well. If I was fitting you for a ball, I would consider something more like DNA Coil or Absolute Power before I would consider Zen U for that particular bag. It looks like the Wanderer has returned. So Billy, we're just debating his bag. He said, where would the AI fit in his bag? And he's got the Gem, Phase 2, Ion Pro, Idle Cosmos, the Vibo, the Hustle Rip, and the Zen U. I don't know if you caught any of what I was just saying, but I said that I felt like a Absolute Power might be a better play for him to kind of fit in between his sort of Gem and the Phase 2, or an XL, because the Gem to the Phase 2 is pretty big gap.
Yeah, it's well, unless you're really touching your Phase 2 up again, you know. Unless it's pretty new, it's probably lane shined by now, which in some ways puts the AI somewhere in that same range, which is still a decent gap from Gem. I agree. Absolute Powers been pretty good. More recently, I think XL has fit in that gap pretty nicely.
He said he forgot to add to use 14 pounds. I don't think that necessarily, especially in the world of AI, which is kind of a lot of the balls now, I
Yeah.
don't think it makes as much difference because the balls are a lot closer numbers wise. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that, but I'm sure that
True.
that had something to do with it.
Good point. Huh.
Like I say, a lot of the people who watch our show are smarter than me and Chris. Eric K, 18 miles an hour, 300 300 revs, one-handed summit, and MG. I'm struggling with what the MG is.
It's been too strong on the Magic Gem.
Magic Gem. Okay.
Too strong on typical hot shot game 1. All right, got an exponent to try. If that's your normal layout, those two cores are way stronger than an exponent core, so you're probably fine there. Touch higher RG, you got less flare, and quite a bit cleaner cover. I don't know that the 5-inch pin might be a better idea on, say, the Magic Gem or one of those asymmetrical balls, but I'm not so sure it's going to be better to go weaker on that exponent. I think you're already going to have a pretty big gap between those two and an exponent. It would be enormous if you made that pin weaker also.
Thanks, Kirk and Jonathan. Thanks for your orders. Appreciate you guys. We had a slight deviation from bowling, last we tend to. Somebody saw that I was a little concerned that 4 people in the AP thought that somebody other than Alabama or Texas could be the number 1 team in college and wasted their time voting for Ohio State.
There's same bowling people that voted Tennessee Wesleyan or whatever program had disbanded.
Yeah.
Into the poll last year.
And Cliff Barnes is he's I guess, but Michigan got it. I guess he's a salty Ohio lover. I'm not suggesting that Ohio couldn't be. I'm suggesting based on beating up the JV squads for 4 weeks and having a week off in between, they probably aren't the number 1 team in the country.
I got to say, college football, while I am a sports junkie, I don't follow it as close, but how many directional or multi-directional schools has Ohio State played so far? Because if it's more than 2, then I'm going to agree with Stu this time. The Big Ten will now finally be something besides Michigan and Penn State, and then whoever gets to 10 first against Iowa.
I was about to say, don't get me started on Penn State. Penn State, most overrated team.
Penn State is like they're like the 5th best team in the Big 12. But I mean, if you're a Big 10 football, you don't think so. But now that Oregon and they have a couple of teams that can actually play a little bit, so you're gonna have to show up, every week. I mean, it's been a mid-major basically, except for those 2 teams for a while. And the Big 12, not any different. I get it. So, but here we go.
Anyway. We've
gotten off the sheet.
Where Cliff messaged me. I had to respond. I've moved down a little bit too much. Right. Does order really matter when bowling league with a 4-person team? I joined a team and after week 1, they now want me to bowl last. The only ways it matters, it's one of those things. It doesn't matter till it does matter. It depends if you're playing a cross as well. If you're just playing team totals, I mean, it's just whoever feels least uncomfortable bowling last. Like, because when you bowl last, you might need a strike to win. So if you feel like your ability to get a strike is inhibited by knowing you need a strike, then you probably shouldn't bowl last.
Yeah, I think it gets pretty obvious, and it's gotten obvious to a lot of us in the PBA league. We have a lot of great bowlers. A lot of guys are really good. Some of those guys don't throw it as good when they're bowling last or bowling on TV. That moment changes things for them a little bit. You know, and so they're better off bowling third or fourth. Doherty forever just bowled fourth because in fourth, he threw 3 or 4 strikes every single time.
Yeah.
And there's a few guys, more than I would have thought in the league like that. And that's kind of the guessing game some of these teams play. At different times, Andrew Anderson wasn't their best player, but he bowled last. Well, for instance, this year, the Atom Splitters, Frankie bowled last a lot while finishing outside of the number overall. Like he finished last a few tournaments, which is shocking, but having one of the worst ball reactions on the team, but he bowled last on that team because he even though he might not have the best ball reaction, it's going to be the same shot, whether it's last or in the third position or second.
Yeah. And he's also got 2 US Opens and a TOC.
Well, yeah.
People no, what I'm saying is you don't tend to win the big trophies without being able to perform.
Yeah. Yeah, I might not be as good as I once was, but the shot on TV isn't going to be worse because it's on TV. So, let's see here. Pekkalinen. Love to have it. Phase AI. Just ordered a Phase 2 though, but it's okay. My bag will be Coil, Phase 2, Tour Dynamics UC3, IQ 78, and Lightning Blackout. A little rev dominant, perhaps. You can still separate the Phase 2 and the AI, I believe, by just keeping surface on the Phase 2. Yeah. It's really early for us on this one, but my take on the Phase AI is it's one of the stronger balls we've had with polish on it, and for me, it still continues, and that's what I've seen so far. The Bolden League last night again. I've been throwing a focus, so there's a fair amount of oil in the lane, more than there used to be, but 258, 257. This is my stew moment. 258, 257, 258 last night, and it kept going through all 3 games. We had some rev rate on the pair. I bowled with Chapman actually as one of the guys, and so there was a fair amount of breakdown, and the front blew up and all that, and it still hung tough all the way through. So that's the first kind of semi game test I had over a longer period, and it still looked good through there. So cautiously optimistic, but maybe a little closer to the Zen than anything we've seen in a minute.
Yeah, a couple of people, couple of questions that were asked that I would have liked you to have been able to answer.
Okay.
So I'll just quickly run back through them. Difference for you between Optimum Idle Pearl and the Phase AI?
The AI is more overall, and it's certainly more down lane. The more I've used the Idle Pearl, it's clean through the front, but then it's smooth, and it's just less overall. I think it's a good lead shot ball. It's a ball that in general, when I drilled one for Linda, I drilled it pinned down so she had something that would get through the front and blend the wet dry. Whereas I think the Phase AI is just a stronger ball overall and more overall hook.
That's kind of what I said. So, and then Slapstick says he's been struggling hitting his line lately. Any advice? My thoughts on this were to really try and dial in your footwork, because it's impossible to bowl the same line if you don't finish in close to the same place every time.
Yes, spine tilt and footwork, I think if you can manage those 2 things pretty consistently, particularly the spine tilt for the first 2 or 3 steps where you're not, if that goes in the same way every time and your footwork is relatively consistent, you'll get way more consistent way quicker. without watching, it's hard to say anything else. Or
Yeah.
there are other things, but by and large, your swing follows your footwork. I think Stu's spot on there. And
I was really specifically meaning like finishing at the same spot at the foul line.
well,
Like if you
yeah.
like just keeping it in super simple terms, like if you're not finishing in the same spot every time, and a lot of bowlers are really focused, especially older school guys, really focused on hitting a target, that can actually be the worst thing that happens to anybody. If you have inconsistent footwork, but you've got really good hand-eye coordination, you're fucked. Because if you drift 2 boards left, but you hit your target at the arrows, that's a big miss. And then if you miss a couple of, you walk a couple of boards right and you hit your target, like it changes a lot.
We have more than a few guys on tour now that are really good field players, and they just kind of drift how they feel. Even Walter, to a certain extent, does this.
Yeah.
But some guys drift quite a bit different between shot to shot, and they just catch it more or catch it less based off of how much they've gone. It looks like they've missed their target when you watch on TV, but at 58 feet, they end up in the same spot a lot.
I mean, you use a golf club analogy here. The Hustle Bree is a 9-iron. The Hustle, the Phase 2 is a 3-iron, and their AI is probably a 4-iron. So fit nicely in between. It'll definitely be in between, but by in between, it's going to be right next to the Phase 2 and a mile away from the Hustle Bree.
Yeah. There's quite a few balls in between there. So it's, I think that's a great analogy. It's 3 or 4 clubs apart at least.
Yeah. I mean,
4 to 5. Yeah.
For us to kind of hit that gap more easily, I think an Iron Pro would fit that gap a little more, like bridge it a little bit better. If you were to get a Phase AI, in my opinion, you would need another ball before the Hustle Bree. If you went with Phase AI, a Lightning Blackout wouldn't be a terrible suggestion to kind of bridge between a Phase AI and that Hustle. But yeah, to fit the gap nicely, I think there are better options personally. Yeah, if you're just going with a 3-ball setup. Right. Why doesn't Storm remake any of the good older balls such as OG Virtual Gravity, Second Dimension, Prodigy? B7 does remakes. Why not Storm? I think that remakes in general are what you do when you've run out of ideas on new tech. A lot of the Brunswick remakes are nothing like the originals, and they're kind of pulling on heartstrings more than they are necessary. And I'm not saying it's a terrible marketing. Like, to me, if they made a Gold Quake tomorrow, I might buy one just to put on the shelf because the Gold Quake was cool. But I'm just saying that, like...
Yeah. I mean, Columbia's heydays were in the 90s, the late 90s.
Yeah.
And they were really on top of the world before Storm kind of came in and took it over. And when you struggle to sell upper mid and high end balls, you tend to bring back those names that generate the loyalty that you had back then. And you really are introducing some new tech or whatever, new covers and things like that. But by putting the old name on it and colors on it, you give more people a reason to come try it. And if you hit on that one, that's a chance to get them back into a brand that's largely been disregarded.
If you look at it, they're not really doing it with Hammer. And Hammer's by far and away their most popular brand. And now that Brunswick have started to get some better balls and more popular balls, better is a very relative term, but more popular balls, they haven't really been doing it as much with Brunswick. But Columbia is a brand that just in general isn't doing as well as they would like it to do. And that's the brand that you've got piranhas and cudas and
Yeah,
all of
Ebonite
these.
killed that brand when they moved it to Hopkinsville, and they've
Yeah.
just really struggled to regain
And
market share since
then
then.
in the same point, Ebonite hasn't been doing as well as they would have liked. I don't think. I mean, I'm not looking at the numbers. I'm just saying, like, around. And the one has come back, and I've actually thought that that's been probably, from what I've seen, one of the most successful relaunches or remakes or whatever. I think that they've been really popular. So, yeah. I think that's why Storm don't do it, because if they release the OG Virtual Gravity, if they released it exactly the same, which they probably can't even make it the same anymore because the covers change so much over the time, but it wouldn't be the same.
It would just detract from the legend.
Yeah, and like people are just, you'd have as many people who are pissed off. This is nothing like the Virtual Gravity. Well, yeah, because, yeah, lane conditions are nothing like they were then either. So, if one already owns Idle Pearl, would it be necessary to buy PHAZE AI, or could both be? I'm going to start from the point that it's never necessarily necessary to buy a ball. Depending on what else you had, I think they could be together. I would drill the PHAZE AI a little stronger. I think that's kind of, you'd want the Optimum Idle to have the weaker layout from what me and Chris have seen. Yeah. Think that covers that.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah, I think it's stronger. I think there's a spot. It's not a massive difference, but it's certainly, like I would drill the AI up and the Optimum Idle Pearl down, and I think that would separate them more, and then I would use them, one to control wet dry and the other one to
Did you say that you'd do the Optimum down?
I would.
That's exactly the same as what Darren said. Darren likes his Optimum down. He generally likes idles down, is what he said in his video, and the PHAZE is up. So
these new idles have been smoother anyway, and so I've just leaned into what they do with the drilling parts of it a little bit. And
Callan says, Stu, you noticed that the house shot cheat code is strong balls with polish. In theory, should that work for everybody, or is that specific to your game? I like to think that it works for quite a few people. I think that if you have, I think it's specifically good if you have a little bit more speed. Not necessarily like super speed dominant, but I don't necessarily think it's the go for really slow ball speeds, because I think that the big asymmetrical ball's probably going to burn up. But if you've got like kind of medium to medium high ball speed, I think that it's a good option, because I think it takes away a couple of the misses that make house shots difficult. Because you've got something that'll dig in the oil, but you've also, by polishing it, you're trying to stop it from burning up quite so quickly. So I think it works for a lot of people. I just think that in general, people are a little reluctant to buy a high-end ball and then add polish to it. And I totally understand. But if you've got that high-end ball that you kind of drill for nationals, because a lot of people do that, and then you haven't really had much chance to use it since nationals, maybe slap some polish on it and give it a go, because I think that's I think that's a good option.
I was feeling a little bit bad about doubling down on Ohio State behind you there. And then I looked at their schedule, and they played Akron and whoever WMU is, Marshall, and Mississippi State. No, Michigan State. Sorry.
Michigan
and the last
State.
time they were good was Kirk Cousins.
I'm not suggesting that they're not a good team. I'm suggesting that if you're voting for the number one team in the country, Texas went in and kicked Michigan's ass, and whether Michigan's any good or not is up for debate, right?
Yeah.
But at least that's something you can hang your hat on, right? Because USC lost. And then Alabama just played what Paul Feinbaum, who I think is a little bit known for hyperbole, but whatever, said is the best SEC game in the last 40 years. It was a pretty fun game.
Yeah.
Against the team.
Ohio State and Michigan had played that game. The winner of that game probably should be in that conversation.
Yeah.
But you can't play the Division II schedule and then say, well, we're the best team.
Whatever, but there was 4 people who used their vote. It's like the one guy who said that Ken Griffey shouldn't be unanimous and into the Hall of Fame. Like, okay, dude, cool.
All right, we're off the rails again.
Any big advantages to throwing 16 pounds these days? John Janovitz says yes.
Yeah.
For us, you're talking to 2 guys who stubbornly threw 16 for probably a little bit too long. About the only time I ever really miss it is when we play on those kind of longer patterns and you really want to play the close to the head pin because it's like cheating sometimes. And every time I leave the 3, 6, 9, 10, I go, man, this was way easier when I threw 16.
Yeah, and I'm seeing some guys are doing it with the hammer version of urethane because the numbers change. But heavier weights with balls that are smoother. I did this at the end when we were global only. We had the no inners in a bunch of balls, and so the smoother balls I was using 16, and the more angular ones I was using 15. Kind of goes along with what you're saying. Currently have Gem Conspiracy Phase 2 High Road Pearl Purple Hammer, looking for a good suggestion to fill the gap. Right hand 17 to 18 and a half. 375 to 400. Is that?
I believe the gap there for me anyway, looking at it, is between the Phase 2 and the High Road Pearl. Although Purple Hammer tends to cover quite a lot of ground.
For most people, that ball covers the gem side of things pretty easily.
Yeah, it's definitely a benchmark ball in that it works on everything, it feels like. But Phase 2 and the High Road Pearl, for me, finding something that fits in between those is probably a good play. I think Phase AI might be a little stronger just because we've been talking about that a lot today. The Vibo, the Virtual Energy Blackout, I think would be a good fit between a Phase 2 and a High Road Pearl. That's one that we tend to like. I think most players see a pretty good change of direction with that ball. It's fairly clean, but definitely a step up from High Road Pearl. So that would be the one ball that I would feel fairly comfortable recommending to definitely be stronger than the High Road Pearl and definitely be cleaner than the Phase 2.
Yep. Agreed. This is not a bad take. Vegas Advantage throwing 16s are cheap when they get discontinued because no one buys them.
It is the biggest advantage for me of throwing 15 pounds was having a great pro shop close to me in with Gary Robinson and being able to switch balls out, because you ain't switching any 16-pound balls out. I can tell you that.
True that. All right. Yeah, we're running up against it here, and we got plenty to answer, so we'll move along. Two-handed, 17 miles per hour, average, 440 RPMs, harsh. Pi, a reality, effect, Zen Soul, X2, Tour Dynamics, Dark Hybrid, Venom. Holy smokes. Most versatile 3-ball.
Well, being two-handed, I think you've got to take the Black Hammer as a two-handed player. I think the reality is by far the most versatile out of the harsh, the Pi, and the reality. And then I think that maybe that Black Venom gives you a little bit, kind of a ball you can sort of hook it with, but also is a little bit smoother with you being two-handed. So for me, it would be the Reality, the Black Venom, and the Black Hammer. But
yeah,
I'd have to get on the lanes with you to really know for sure.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, the reality of those first 3 balls is definitely the most versatile, useful. Obviously, I don't know much about the effect. I see a fair amount of guys throwing it.
It's pretty angular.
Yeah, and so useful, but maybe a smaller window than something like that Black Venom, which is a pretty middle of the road dark web hybrid.
Yeah,
I just don't. Yeah,
I mean,
I think Stu hit it. I think that's where I would go with the same thing. That's just
like maybe X2 is another one you might consider.
Yeah, it ends up being a little more niche in a 3 ball.
Yeah,
definitely a ball I like out of that group.
You've got to me. I just feel like Zen Soul will be a little bit too close to Reality in a 3 ball.
And yeah, it's just too far. The giant gap between Reality and Black Hammer with not much to do.
Hey Peter, he says he's a lefty, Harsh Reality, Sublime, Exponent Pearl, Lightning Blackout. Where does PHAZE AI fit?
Stronger than Sublime, in between Harsh Reality and Sublime for me.
Yeah. It definitely is closest out of the 4 balls you have. It's definitely the closest to the Sublime.
It is. Numbers wise, we match up pretty close and all that, but I find the AI to be stronger and a little more continuous down lane.
What would you recommend for speed dominant players who play in tight centers? From what I've seen so far, the ball that I use is my strongest, biggest ball right now is the Ion Max. That's the one I like the best.
Seen a lot of those already. So we're not the only ones. It's basically become the Reality replacement, I think.
Yeah. And also, we see a lot more because it's obnoxiously bright.
Well, it's hard to miss it. That is true.
Slapstick from earlier says, he says, Stu, I'm built like you. I'm sorry. So footwork, and sometimes I'm not facing my shoulders right always. Yeah. Getting your shoulders lined up is pretty crucial. Especially for left side spares when you're a little larger. It's very easy to be too open and not close to the target because obviously for Tina, it's a lot easier for her to redirect her swing across her body. It ain't a good idea for her either, but it's a lot easier for her to do that. For me, if I ever miss the 4-pin, it's always straight up the lane because I didn't get my shoulders this way. I almost would never miss a 4-pin left. In the same way, I pretty much always miss the 10-pin in the right go.
Dan Belcher.
Yeah.
Agree with Stu about footwork and Barnzy about spine tilt. Baker had me focus on those 2 things the last few months. Huge improvement. Same thing he and I work on when we're doing tune-ups.
3G's Bees says just in time to share the super chat love. Yep, thank you. Just quickly to remind everybody, if you buy something on beefandbarnzy.com, you get twice the entries. We're going to do the ball drawing on Thursday's show once I've had a chance to build it. So if you put in a $5 super chat, you get 5 entries. If you buy something on beefandbarnzy.com, you get the something and you get twice as many entries. So that's why we're doing it that way. Yeah. Super CUDA.
Larry, step. Yeah. There we go. 2 fingers, 1 hand, 16 miles per hour, 350 Magic Gem DNA Coil Dynamics Exponent Pearl IQ 78. Would love to add aids. PHAZE AI. Below gem and as basically a symmetrical in the range of DNA coil. I haven't thrown those 2 against each other yet, but because the symmetrical, asymmetrical, they're going to have a little bit different shapes off each other. Typically, Stu's the DNA coil expert. He's
Yeah, I mean,
he
for me,
maximizes its talents when it's the right deal.
I find it really difficult to compare like asymmetrical and symmetrical balls because to me they make such different motions that the comparisons become a little bit.
It kind of fits in that angular versus control, having two different shapes inside the same window kind of thing, which is kind of how I build them.
I have really liked the phase AI on the sport patterns I've used it on. I haven't really liked it on the house shot as much.
Okay.
I kind of used it a little bit on the house shot trying to get, and I got kind of a bad read. I felt like the friction made it get much more forward than I wanted it to. But I've bowled on a couple of different sport patterns. And I just realized that we've gone the entire show. We're going to play this while we chat.
Okay.
This is me bowling on, and it's kind of dark, but whatever. I'm bowling on 40-foot Monticelli. I've got a video. This stuff isn't in the video. This is what I did afterwards. But this is slightly broken down. I kind of felt like it was a little too early for this phase AI, but it definitely made sense to me off the Summit Ascent. I throw the Ascent a little bit in this video. I kind of kept most of the shit in there because I kind of wanted you to see that the lanes weren't, super easy. But yeah, the video that I filmed will go live right after the show. I can't believe I actually did this and then forgot to put this video up. But anyway, that's this is kind of how I see it. This is where it's going to be really good for me on kind of those medium sport patterns. This is the Ascent, kind of a similar part of the lane. Just like you can see, it picks up a little earlier and it's just a little bit more like rounded. I think that the transition on the AI is just a little quicker. This is the Ascent again. Got the messenger as well. I'm counting the 6-pin tap in the 10 as the messenger came across as a messenger, by the way, Chris.
I like it. That's fun.
It's a judgment-free zone. Oh, just real quick. This just shows you how much stronger because I throw the Ion Max in a second, and you'll see that's the Ion Max. You kind of don't realize how much stronger some of those balls are, and then it just burns up, and that's the difference between asymmetrical and symmetrical when you bowl on those flatter patterns. Becca says he's limited his revs from 500 to 450 to gain better control. Thinking AI or Ion Pro to complete my bag, but which? I think that the Ion Pro is super special. I think it's a very different motion from all of the other balls. So I think, especially if you have a higher rev rate, that's a ball that you should get into your bag. Whether it completes the bag better or not, I don't 100% see.
This bag is Coil Phase 2, Tour Dynamics UC3. I think Ion Pro is a better fit in that.
Yeah, and I think that the Ion Pro can almost replace your Tour Dynamics.
Yeah, cover a bigger gap too. So
is Phase AI similar to Summit Peak? The Phase AI has quite a bit stronger cover stock than the Summit Peak. So to me, the Summit Peak is just cleaner. But in terms of motion, I don't think they're drastically different for me when I use the Summit Peak. I just think that the Phase AI makes a little more sense because I think that it picks up earlier. So the fact that it's a little bit more rolly down the lane makes more sense. Whereas the Summit Peak didn't pick up early enough for how smooth it is down the lane, or like how kind of the core makes it get quite forward. Right. And when you combine that with a cleaner cover, it didn't really make it clean and then a big motion. To me, it made it clean, and then a rolling motion, which don't really go together.
The window was too small for me.
Yes.
The infused I didn't particularly like. The sublime was good in some spots. So far, this fits my bag in a much better place than any of those. None of those are in my bag actually currently. So
Summit Peak for me was practice day ball. Always look the absolute nuts every week on the PBA tour. Every week it's 7-10 for me when I needed it not to. It just, like I say, I imagine that it would probably look quite good at home sometimes, but it came out just before the tour season started, and then I got bad vibes from the tour, so then I wasn't really looking to have it. TNT Infused and the Sublime, the best games I bowled with the Sublime were the one I did the video. Sorry. Like, I could imagine using the Sublime on a house shot quite a bit, but for me, PHAZE AI makes a little bit more sense because it's the strongest of the 4 balls. And I think,
yeah, I think it continues better than the other ones do too. Also, I think they marry up pretty well so far.
Lumper X says, little late to the party, attention star or PHAZE AI?
Complementary, in my opinion. Attention star is quite a bit longer, quite a bit more directional. And PHAZE AI is also shiny, but shiny and quite a bit stronger. I would say 3 to 4 feet sooner, and then comparatively to an attention star, more rounded.
Ivan, thank you for the order on beefandbarnzy.com. But yeah, I think PHAZE AI might be a little bit more versatile. I think attention star is absolutely the nuts, or just for people. People love it's kind of like they talk about Marmite in Australia. You either love it or you're like,
yeah.
Rankings
are relevant to the new playoff system. Getting heat for nothing. SEC could be ranked 1 to 10, but only conference champ gets a bye. Yeah, and Ohio State should win that one pretty easy. So
yeah, I get it. But what's the point of doing the rankings if you're not going to talk about them?
Yeah,
and don't act like they're not going to make some difference later on.
Yeah, you're going to end up with some teams in the same bracket that you don't think should be there, same as the NCAA bracket.
Yeah.
And other than asymmetry, how clean responsive is the PHAZE AI to the tension star?
I think answered that.
Yeah, we basically did, but he put in money, so we'll say it again.
No,
is stronger and smoother compared to the attention star, which is longer and more directional.
Yeah, I was really just reiterating that, we definitely see, definitely see PHAZE AI as picking up sooner.
What ball did you throw on the Villages Sun Bowl against Albee, and was it hard to bowl outside? Well, it almost got really tricky because it sprinkled in between a couple of the matches. You want to talk about
that was nice approaches.
Whew, that was scary. You're like the worst case scenario, and then we basically just tested the approaches and it was fine, and we just kept bowling. But water and oil, I remember moving, I don't know, 7 or 8 boards, and most of that show was like Doug Ken at the beginning, and then it was all left-handers. Weird. I believe that was an X zone, like an orange pin X zone. So, a ball I still like, but it was actually very close to ironically, the Albee ball was very close to that same orange pin X zone.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Eddie, thanks for the order. Christian, hey guys, love the content. I love my Summit and want to know what in the line still with similar role, Optimum Idol.
Probably closest.
Yeah, I think it's still going to be. I think the Summit's going to be. The Summit is earlier and smoother. It's a bigger footprint, I feel like.
Yeah, I'd agree, but that's probably closest in what I can see right now.
So maybe drill the Idol a little stronger, just
Sublime Focus, I think, is a little bit cleaner to it and more off the spot down lane.
Definitely more angular.
I think it's a better ball for me. The Focus is. It's my favorite in the global line, but not as smooth as the Summit for sure.
Well,
okay.
I think we got one more order just come in, and it was Kristen. Sorry, Kristen. So thanks for that. I will put this all together. I am not going to close this browser window so I can go through and get everybody's things. I'll write them all down. I'll build the wheel of not ideal, or the wheel of ideal. We've had a really good response to this, so I will find a couple of other prizes to throw in as well. Thanks, guys. PHAZE AI. I won't be able to ship it to you until October 18th. If you choose to take something else, that's fine also. It doesn't have to be a PHAZE AI. It makes no difference to me and Chris which ball you take. So if you would prefer something sooner, you will be able to take whatever you want. But it didn't make as good a show. So free win a PHAZE AI. But yeah, please check out Chris's review on the channel. I'm going to put a video live as soon as we finish this. So flick back to the Beef and Barnzy channel. I do a sport shot. I bowl on the Monticelli pattern. I use Summit Ascent, Phase 2, and the AI, and I kind of just go back and forth between the three balls, kind of seeing, how they fit. I give some info on how I would bowl that pattern. Let me know if you like that format. It's pretty easy for me to film that way. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for contributing. Thanks for everybody who joined.
Ryan and I did a one versus one on his channel, Barnzy Bowling, and there's be a part 2 that'll be up later this week that will be on our channel. So a few videos coming up, one already, another one later today, and then another one tomorrow, the day after. So check into the Beef and Barnzy channel, and there'll be lots of reviews and videos on these new balls, and you can figure out where they fit for you.
Yeah, and then, of course, remember that we'll be back on Thursday with the drawing. So if you are looking for the answer to whether you won or not, I'll do it pretty early on in the show, so I won't make you search through the whole show to find it. And quick shout out to me. I beat the shit out of my wife in fantasy football this week.
Your superior intellect showed through. And
but I did lose my fantasy match last night because Jared Goff's a moron and he got sacked. Just run it out. Why did you have to get clever? So
well, I lost because Goff decided to become a receiver, and
yes, I saw that.
Yeah, him and Jameson Williams had 6 points in the first half, and then they had 35 in the second half. So, anyway, join us Thursday. Between now and then, please support the sponsor, support us, and come back Thursday to find out who won the ball. Appreciate your guys' support. Great show. You guys make it happen. Between now and then, please support the sponsors that support us. Storm, Rotogrip, Niner Global, Coolwick, Bowler Smart, Firelight Bowling Center, Lightning Strikes, and Platinum Forward. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.
Thank you. See you.